So, markets are reacting to a loss they weren't told about. Prices are moving, contracts are tightening, and entire industries are adjusting, not because something new happened, but because something irreversible already did. China is selling more to the world while the United States absorbs higher costs and shrinking reach, and the gap between those two realities is now showing up in chips, metals, and capital flows. This isn't volatility driven by fear. It's the market recognizing that leverage has changed hands, and that correcting it now would be more damaging than letting it stand. The contradiction is already visible in the growth map. Bloomberg reported that most U.S. expansion in 2025 clustered in technology, healthcare, real estate, and government spending, while trade-exposed manufacturing slid toward contraction. Construction permits weakened as imported inputs became more expensive. Domestic suppliers raised prices to protect margins. Projects paused. The economy didn't stop, it narrowed. Factories feel it first. When tariffs land on components, costs ripple through every invoice. Reuters surveys showed U.S. manufacturers struggling to pass those costs through without losing orders. Freight volumes thinned even as AI stocks surged. The rally looked broad from a distance. Up close, it was concentrated and fragile. Washington framed the experiment as decoupling. Pressure China, force factories home, make allies follow. The data broke that narrative. Financial Times reporting on Chinese customs figures showed exports to the United States falling sharply, while shipments to Europe and Asia climbed. Africa stood out, with growth rates north of 20% across multiple months. China lost one buyer and replaced it. The leverage moved quietly. As China diversified demand, sanctions became harder to wield. Prices softened elsewhere. IMF tables released in the fall warned that excess industrial capacity would continue exporting deflation into 2026. Countries trying to cool inflation noticed. They criticized Beijing publicly and bought Chinese goods privately. That tension explains the travel. Reuters tracked senior European and Canadian officials moving through Beijing to stabilize trade channels. France wants inputs for industry. Canada wants clean energy supply chains and access to demand. Mark Carney, now Canada's Prime Minister, understands the arithmetic. The center of consumption has shifted. The scale matters. Data compiled by the New York Times from Chinese commerce authorities showed China's e-commerce market pushing beyond $3 trillion last year, roughly 40% of global online sales. The United States isn't close. That consumer gravity means China can import less without strain while exporters everywhere chase access. Western firms still sell into China, not out of sentiment, but necessity. Trump's defense hardened. He now argues tariffs don't touch American consumers, claiming foreign producers and intermediaries absorb the cost. Corporate filings say otherwise. The Wall Street Journal reported retailers and manufacturers repeatedly citing tariffs when explaining price increases. The political trap tightened reverse course and look weak, or continue and strengthen the competitor. Beijing's model thrives in that bind. Invest more, consume less, control the inputs. Labor in China isn't cheap anymore, but capital is abundant and directed. Since the pandemic exposed global dependence on Chinese factories, exports have climbed even as imports from the U.S. fell. Bank analysts told Bloomberg they expect the trade surplus to widen again this year if policies hold, not narrow. Capital followed strategy. Reuters investigations trace Chinese investment into lithium brines, copper pits, gold projects, and refining capacity across Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia. Energy followed the same path: power plants, grids, refineries, solar lines. These aren't short trades, they're scaffolding. As Chinese firms climb the value chain, lower margin production migrates outward to friendly jurisdictions where costs fit. The ecosystem moves with it. As policy grows more intrusive at home, the next front opens: semiconductors. Washington's chip strategy, well, it mixed controls, incentives, and revenue pressure. Proposals and discussions signaled that selling advanced chips into China would face much heavier burdens, directly squeezing cash flows. Industry executives warned that siphoning revenue actually weakens research budgets. Nvidia sells globally because, scale funds innovation. Cut the scale and you slow the cycle. Meanwhile, China moved the opposite way. Domestic firms kept their earnings and received layered support. Analysts cited by the Financial Times noted that Chinese accelerators still lag, leading United States chips on peak performance but compete aggressively on cost. Quantity compresses the gap faster than controls anticipate. Time favors the builder who keeps selling. The political vision was dramatic. Relocate Taiwanese fabrication capacity to American soil and declare independence. Trump cited commitments in the hundreds of billions from industry and government to make it happen. Factories can rise. Demand is the unresolved variable. China accounts for roughly half of global semiconductor consumption. Price United States chips out of that market, and, well, the math breaks. Signals from Beijing added even more uncertainty. Reports suggested customs authorities were reviewing certain United States chip imports, a pause rather than a ban. The ambiguity alone chilled planning. Allow revenue to flow, and United States firms fund the next generation. Block it, and substitution accelerates. Delay favors the side still expanding capacity. Then metals snapped into focus. Silver began trading like a risk asset, swinging 5 to 10% in days. The reason is physical. Both China and the United States need silver for electrification, defense electronics, and solar manufacturing. Bloomberg data showed persistent premiums in Shanghai over London and New York, at times exceeding $10 an ounce. That premium pulls metal east. The arbitrage is relentless. Move silver by ship or plane and the margin pays. Chinese manufacturers locked supply because substitution is limited. The International Energy Agency has shown silver's share of solar panel costs rising as efficiency targets climb. Copper can't simply replace it without sacrificing lifespan and output. U.S. demand couldn't step aside. Imports surged through 2025 as manufacturers secured inventories. Plans floated in Washington to tariff critical minerals stalled. Reuters reported policymakers recognize the risk tax silver and domestic prices jump, squeezing companies like Tesla and slowing renewable deployment. The tariff campaign found a boundary it couldn't cross. Stepping back reinforced demand. Volatility fed hoarding. Investors and manufacturers bought because policy uncertainty substituted for supply shocks. 5% daily swings became normal when guidance evaporated. The pressure is no longer theoretical. U.S. Treasury auctions in recent months have struggled to clear without higher yields, a sign that foreign demand is thinning even as deficits expand. Bloomberg reported that several primary dealers were forced to absorb larger than expected allocations, pushing yields up and tightening financial conditions at the same moment tariffs are squeezing margins. Markets aren't just reacting to trade policy anymore. They're repricing funding risk. China is watching that carefully. According to Reuters reporting on central bank disclosures, Beijing has continued reducing exposure to long-duration U.S. assets while increasing allocations to gold-linked and commodity-adjacent reserves. This isn't a dramatic dump. It's a slow rebalancing that avoids headlines but compounds over time. The signal is quiet. Dependence is being reduced without confrontation. Europe sees the same stress. French industrial groups have warned privately, according to the Financial Times, that higher U.S. input costs and erratic trade rules make long-term planning difficult. That's why Paris keeps channels to Beijing open despite political tension. Access to stable supply beats ideological alignment when margins are thin. Canada's posture mirrors this logic. Mark Carney's government has avoided trade theatrics, focusing instead on securing minerals, energy equipment, and market access that won't be hostage to Washington's next move. Inside corporate America, the strain is becoming visible. Earnings calls reviewed by the Wall Street Journal show manufacturers flagging policy volatility as a primary risk, not demand. Companies can model recessions. They can't model improvisation. Tariffs that change scope, rate, or exemption status every few months freeze investment more effectively than a downturn. The chip sector is where that uncertainty bites hardest. Nvidia's capital expenditure plans depend on predictable global sales. Restricting access to China doesn't just cut revenue, it compresses learning curves. Meanwhile, Huawei benefits from forced demand. Chinese cloud firms, barred from buying freely, standardize around domestic hardware, locking ecosystems in place. Once software stacks harden, switching back becomes expensive even if controls loosen later. That dynamic is already visible in AI deployment. Analysts cited by the New York Times note that Chinese firms compensate for lower peak chip performance with scale and optimization. Models trained on larger clusters at lower cost don't need to win benchmarks to win markets. The gap narrows quietly, not through a single breakthrough but through repetition. The commodity layer reinforces this trend. Silver is only the most visible stress point. Reuters has also flagged tightening conditions in copper concentrates and battery-grade lithium as Chinese buyers secure long-term contracts. These aren't panic buys, they're preemptive. Lock supply now, remove uncertainty later. Western buyers face spot markets with rising premiums and fewer options. U.S. companies feel the downstream effects. Tesla, heavily exposed to silver and battery metals, has warned investors about input volatility even as demand holds up. Tariffs can't solve that problem. They magnify it. Every additional cost feeds back into pricing, incentives, and adoption curves that Washington claims to protect. Trump's position is boxed in by his own success metric. Walking back tariffs signals defeat. Doubling down accelerates the shift he wanted to prevent. Markets understand that paradox. That's why volatility persists even on quiet news days. Traders aren't waiting for announcements, they're watching flows. China's advantage isn't that it's immune to pressure, it's that its response horizon is longer. Supply chains, once rerouted, don't snap back on command. Factories built, mines financed, and standards adopted create inertia that outlasts election cycles. The longer the standoff continues, the more those paths harden. Across markets, the pattern repeated. China absorbed pressure and redirected flows. The United States applied force and discovered limits. None of this proves inevitability, but the momentum is visible. IMF economists warned fragmentation raises costs for everyone while benefits accrue to those controlling inputs. The picture that emerges isn't collapse, it's reweighting. U.S. markets react each morning to decisions made overnight in ports, mines, and customs offices half a world away. Tariffs meant to dominate instead constrain. Chips meant to secure advantage become leverage. Silver meant to electrify the future becomes a fear gauge. The unanswered question isn't whether volatility continues, it will, but whether policy adapts before supply chains finish their quiet realignment. Prices are already voting and they aren't waiting. We're glad you're enjoying this video. Please like and subscribe. Check out another video that is now on your screen.